What's going on, everyone? So I did a video diving into the idea of doing a direct sequel, right? Doing a direct sequel after 96, right? A lot of people want to see Stu come back, but how do you really make that make sense after the 30 years, right? Like, can you even do that? You've seen a lot of franchise, a lot of horror films starting to do that direct sequel, right? The requel style film. You've seen like the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, right? It's supposed to tie into part 2 and forget part 3. And, I just, the direct sequel route, as I mentioned in that video, I don't like the idea just because I don't want to see this franchise get all crazy and chaotic and convoluted. And it's something where, like Halloween, where you need an entire map to kind of navigate where's what and what's what and this, that, and the other. Right? It just gets a little silly, a little all over the place. I like the continuity of this franchise. I think it's, something that very few horror franchises maintain, especially with over a 30-year period, especially over several films, right? But you could argue Scream 5 and 6 kind of just be its own thing. And you kind of retcon and pick up after Scream 4. And I kind of briefly touched on it in that video, but I really want to kind of expand on that more and have more of a conversation about retcon, like just letting Scream 5 and 6 be its own thing and keeping the 1 through 4 continuity, where like the Sam and Tara story are its own thing, right? And then you're just picking up from 4 and just continuing to go that direction, right? Because you could argue, right, that Scream 5 and 6 are kind of its own thing. Scream 5 was, essentially a remake of 96 in a lot of ways. Scream 6 even kind of did a lot of things that Scream 2 did. But also, with that being leads outside of Nev and Courtney as Sidney and Gale, right? You're keeping kind of the Sidney and Gale story, the continuity with that. You could still implement certain things from 5 and 6, right? Because, Mark and Cade, Sidney got together in Scream 3, so you could still do Mark and Cade and the kids and all that, but you could keep Dewey alive, right? Another big thing is like Kirby, right? Like they are doing a Kirby movie. Well, if you were to retcon it and have a direct sequel after, say, 3, right? Well, now how do you do the Kirby thing, right? So to me, I do think that there is an argument at least to just let Scream 5 and 6 be its own thing. You had different leads, you had different stories, right? It kind of just pretended like 3 and 4 didn't even exist. Like you never really got mentions of that ever, right? Like it was in many ways a direct sequel to Scream 96, but it was still kind of its own thing. It was almost a direct sequel, but without being a direct sequel, right? And again, I've talked about where if you keep the continuity, you can get away with a lot of things that people want, right? There's still, as I'm making this video, an ongoing debate about Dewey Riley and Dewey being back in the franchise. Well, if you keep the continuity of 5 and 6, you can't do that. But if you pick it up from Scream 4, you can. A lot of people really want to see Stu Macher return, right? Problem with that is that even if you picked it up from Scream 4, you still have several movies that don't even mention him. It's like he doesn't even exist in them, right? Now, if you were to do a direct sequel from Scream 96, then I think you could get away with it because you could justify he was just in prison the last 30 years. And continuity-wise between films, you don't have, all this history in between where it's like, where's Stu been then, right? Where it's kind of your, like, because the argument would be like, oh, well, you could just say he's been in prison the whole time too. Yeah, but you also have 5 other films and which again he's not even mentioned really. I mean, Scream 5 has it mentioned, but I'm talking about like really mentioned, like where he's at, what's going on. He survived. Like you have all of this history in which Stu is basically dead, right? He's not basically, he is, right? Until we know otherwise. Well, theories are that theories. We don't like the only thing we know is that he was dead or appeared to be dead. Right? Everything else is theory, right? So again, like, how do you kind of overlook all that? And I know like the diehard Stu fans, they probably could care less, right? As long as it's like a half justifiable reason, right? And it makes some logic. I think a lot of them would be like, that's fine. Sure, let's go with that. But, I don't want this to get carried away. Because once you open Pandora's box, you can't close it, right? So I think the only way that you do it without it getting crazy and convoluted is you have the Sam and Tara arc of those two films that tie into 96 and all that. And then you have now the continuity and continued story of Sidney and Gale. And you could still go on for as long as you want. You could still keep the continuity of this timeline because you could establish new characters that kind of take over the mantle for Sidney and Gale going forward. Right? Because like say you pick up from Scream because you would have to pick up from Scream 4. Just because Dewey's still alive, Dewey and Gale are together, right? Kirby is a thing and exists, and you could still basically do what you did in Scream 6, just be like, oh, she survived the attack, right? Okay. And hopefully give a better explanation. So you could still do your Kirby movie. You could still, like, everything still works if you pick it up from Scream 4. Where if you just retcon Scream 5 and 6, you pretend like that didn't exist, and you just continued this timeline, the Sidney timeline, right? Where Sidney is the main focus, Sidney is the main character. You're not forgetting about Scream 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. You're picking it right up. Obviously, it would be 15 years after Scream 4, but that's fine. You could do that. And you're just kind of telling the story with Sidney for another film, 2, 3, however many you want to do. Keeping that continuity. Establishing characters that kind of pass the torch to. Sidney rides off in the sunset. You got these new characters established, this other final girl or guy or whatever. And now you're just trotting along. And you just, and then you never have to retcon again. Right? Like you could just kind of do rip the Band-Aid off once so you don't have to do it again. Right? Like Scream 5 and 6, they were great. We did this thing. It was cool. It was different. Fortunately, we weren't able to continue that story. So here is the continued Sidney story. And you just kind of pick up where the Scream 1 through 5 let off. And I think you'd be good. I think it works. I think it makes sense. I think you can... Again, I'm not a fan of it. It's not something that, like, I'd be super thrilled about. But I do think it's something that you can kind of explain away. Like, I don't think people would care that much. I think there'd be some people, like, and even myself, like, I wouldn't care that. Like, I'm not, oh, that's it, I've never watched Scream. No, I think I'm still going to watch it. I'm still going to, if it's a good movie, if it makes sense, sure. Right? Sam and Tara's story is its own thing, that's fine. Right? Like, I mean, you look at the franchise, right? You got the original trilogy, then you got Scream 4, which was supposed to spawn other films, and unfortunately didn't happen, was passing and stuff like that. It's unfortunate, right? But it's always kind of been its own thing now, right? And it always will, more likely than not, be its own thing. So you have the original trilogy, you have this like random standalone film now because of the way that the franchise is taken up, where you have the tie-in because of Kirby, but even the explanation, like, it's not really tie-in. It's just like, here's a character people love. You're welcome, right? Like, it's not really this like super direct, right? So, And then you have the Sam and Tara story, and now you're going to do a new story that's going to essentially forget about Sam and Tara. So you're basically going to retcon Scream 5 and 6 anyway. Why not just, again, peel the Band-Aid off and just do it? Right? 5 and 6 were our own thing. We're picking up from Scream 4. 15 years after Scream 4. Boom. Let's go. Ready to go. I just think that's probably a cleaner approach. Rather than like Scream 4 is its own thing. Scream 5 and 6 are its own thing. Yeah, it's all one continuity, franchise. But these 3 films are kind of its own thing. And just, why not just address it for what it is? Why not just, take it head on? Be done. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel with your thoughts? Do you agree with my points? Disagree with my points? Are you kind of in the middle? Somewhere in between? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.